Good morning, everybody. This is not the Sunday teaching, which I will do later, but I'm I'm posting my Sunday post, and then later, God willing, you'll see the teaching video that I will do for this day's Sunday Mass, okay? Today I'm talking to you July 29th, 2018 on Sunday. But as I'm posting and doing my normal routine, you know, there are things that upset me. And I mentioned yesterday on that update video, there was a new guy that was hanging out, and I had thought that guy was an undercover cop, just because he was new, he introduced himself to me. But he started telling me stories that he stayed somewhere, like at a motel over here, or storage thing where a friend of mine had a storage thing. I won't give it was one of the storage things at Motel 6 or whatever. And he was telling me as he slept at night that the lady came in and she sexually did a bunch of stuff to him. Now, I didn't want to be hearing this. He spoke about his penis quite often. I didn't want to be hearing this guy. And then the next day I seen him, and the next story was he was staying somewhere else, and then he had his phone, and then he fell asleep, and then in the morning he was texting some girl, and then that girl called him back and said he took your phone, took pictures of your penis, sent the pictures of his penis to the girl, and then he got his phone. Now, every day that I seen him, he had some story. And then one day, when I was not at the turnaround, one of the girls that's, a friend of mine on the street, she told me, as well as others, that he got naked under the turnaround and was swimming. Now, all of this made me kind of wonder about him. And I told a mutual friend who's been on the street for a long time, I said, man, I wondered about that guy because this other friend started going at the turnaround. I said, because he's doing all types of illegal acts. I said, so I don't think he's an undercover cop. But my friend told me, he said, no, John, they will do that. Whether he was or not, I don't know. But then, when I watched what's going on in our country, and you heard me mention about mafia and stuff, Italian, and as a reader, as somebody who tries to inform himself, and the whole thing about the Mueller investigation, the thing that upsets me about Mr. Mueller is during the Whitey Bulger fiasco out of Boston, Massachusetts, Whitey Bulger was an Irish gangster. But Bulger had his crew, and they were whacking Italians. Okay? Italian mafia, the real mob, they've engaged in killings. But something was funny about Bulger, because they were killing a lot of them and getting away with it. And the feds were not cracking down on them. Then later it was revealed that they were permitting that. The FBI and the undercover agent by the name of Connolly and others who happened to be a childhood friend of Bulger, they allowed murders, killings, to all take place under that office. And it was Robert Mueller who was in charge of that FBI office. Now eventually the other agencies had, so that was one of the most corrupt, undercover, criminal organization things. And it just happened to happen under this man by the name of Robert Mueller. Now, there were 4 Italians that also Mr. Muller's crew framed. And they went to prison for 30 years. 2 died in prison, and the other 2 lived. It came out. They lied, they framed them, they set them up, and there was an official judge that looked at that case. And, of course, yes, Mr. Mueller, they committed tremendous crimes and were never held accountable. Most people do not realize when these undercover guys, they're not all this way, but as you can see, I don't like these guys, but they can commit all types of acts of crimes. There was a top guy in charge. This is a top government guy about 8 years ago. And he was in charge of all the online predators, which they would obviously, it's an important thing to stop. Adults soliciting minors online. Now, he was the top guy. And some of them, all they do all day is contact people, even people that never even went online, texting them, getting them to go online. How about showing up? How about this? They did that to a pilot. There was some guy out of South Texas. This was a case 7 years ago. And somebody had a thing. This is what the pilot claims. And then that online undercover cop began himself talking to that pilot. I forget if he was a private pilot or whatever. That's what the case came out. And said, and I don't want to talk to you. Oh no, please. And it was undercover cop. Now the guy that was in charge of all of that, eventually, one of the top guys years ago was busted for sex with minors. Now, was he making videos as an undercover officer? This is a question we would ask. And was the young 12-year-old girl, oh, she was an agent? Are those things going on? And when I looked at the Mueller case, and then I looked at some that were actually, there were undercover guys in New York City that were working for the FBI. But they didn't tell anybody. And some of those undercover guys, they like thinking like they're one of the guys. And there are times where the undercover guys, in order to keep their cover, will go out as tough guys. And you're in a club, and then people wonder, is this guy an undercover? He's been hanging around for a while. Or you're at one of the Italian places in New York or something. And sometimes what they'll do is they will purposefully, because they think they're tough, and they will go up and just punch somebody in the face. Now, behind the scenes, they know they got permission from the uppers, from the Mullers. Yeah, go ahead and kick that guy's ass. But, and say if that guy, in self-defense, in one shot, punches you in the throat and kills you, what happens if he did it in self-defense? Because then they go after that guy. And even if the video shows that that undercover cop walked up to that other guy and just openly, just because they get away with all types of stuff these days. And if you in self-defense, threw one punch in self-defense after the other guy hit you, and you happen to kill that guy by accident, they'll go after you. But the video showed you went after, we don't care. And this is what part of the criminal activity is in this country. And it just irks me that Mueller had one of the worst histories of permitting his agents to commit crimes and to set people up. And two Italians died in prison, the other two got out of it. And he did all that knowing that they were doing criminal activity. Documents on it. And then I watched the national scene and the local scene, and I think, who are the criminals? And Mr. Mueller is now going through all the tweets of Mr. Trump, just to see. And then this whole thing about the Paul Manafort. They raided his home, they got him, they put him in solitary, went after his family, going after his kids. Well, this is strong arm. And then I watched the country and the media say, oh yeah, well, yeah, he might be overstepping his bounds. And what does the Caller Times say about all of this? Exposing corruption, covering up for Mexican judges and drug cartels and every other thing under the sun. The Caller Times ran a piece on Mr. Mueller in the opinion section and said one of the only righteous men, something to that effect, one of the most righteous, noble men in this whole thing. Tell me about the undercover cops that do all types of crimes, and Mueller himself was in charge of the agency that was one of the worst. You see, this present situation that we're in our country, because of the media as an absolute, complete, total joke. Because what you would show, if you were a true civil libertarian, you would show the criminal things when they step and pass over lines. Say if I was Mr. Manafort, and I was in my home at night, and I heard somebody break in, and I had no idea you were doing some type of raid to get things that you could have got any other way. And then you put your hands on my wife, I don't even know who you are. You've crossed a lot of lines in that. And what about that FBI guy, that top guy, that was out enforcing all of these online solicitations, and he was having sex with kids, or downloading child porn left and right, tons of it, and these are people that are so-called badges. When my other friend told me, I said, man, I'm wondering about this new guy. He's not around anymore. He's talking about this. He's talking about videos and this and this and this. I stayed here, and then he's running around naked, jumping into one. I said, I don't think he's a cop because I said, oh yeah. And my friend said, John, they do all that. And I think, so do you do everything? Do you rape, murder, kill, that element of you? Do you run rogue? Do you set up? The whole movie was done on the Mueller debacle called Black Mass. Johnny Depp played Whitey Bulger. And there was killings, out and out murders that Mr. Bulger was carrying out with his crew, executions, all with the knowledge of that FBI officer out of Boston, all under Mueller's watch. And then he had other things, and the Caller Times, and the media. One of the most righteous men we've ever, you have covered up for criminal activity. And you're a disgrace that you have done those things. You're a disgrace that you have done those things. You're a disgrace that you've covered up for judges committing crimes, right? And then we have our local officials talking about how much money we're going to get because we're dredging the port. So you can have an undercover cop today, anywhere, and he could sit and collude and say, yeah, go out and beat the hell out of this guy. You guys do that. And say, yeah, let's do it. And then if the guy defends himself, you go after that guy. You hit another, well, he walked up to me and just threw a sucker. Oh, yeah, we allow those guys to do that. So, oh, do you allow them to whack people? Mr. Mueller's crew. You knew Bulger was killing people, and then you also set up the 4 Italians. And the judges finally, it came New York Times, I read it. That's corruption. But the local media, one of the most just and noble men we've ever seen. What's that scripture? The law was committed to you. You judges, you undercut. The law was committed to you. And because you break the law, the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles.